Gray clouds hung low over the fields, and the air was heavy with dampness. A fine rain that had begun during the night hadn't stopped, turning the uneven road into a slippery, muddy rut. Olivia sat behind the wheel, trembling slightly in her worn, soft seat. Her old tractor, Zaria, rattled steadily as it crawled along the narrow road. With every jolt, the wrenches clinked against a hammer somewhere in the cabin. On both sides stretched deep ditches filled with murky water. Suddenly, a sharp honk blared from behind. Olivia flinched in surprise. Glancing in the rearview mirror, she saw a pair of shiny SUVs closing in. Black, massive, they seemed to appear out of nowhere, now honking furiously at her. Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief, her mouth slightly open. She hadn't expected to see anything like that out here. But there was nowhere to turn, so she just shrugged and kept driving at her turtle's pace. From the leading SUV, a muscular, shaved-headed man leaned out. "Hey, move that heap off the road," he barked harshly. His voice sliced through the damp air like the crack of a whip. The words reached Olivia, sending an unpleasant chill down her back. "Move it, come on," came the shout again, interrupted by impatient honks. "Off the road, now!" In the mirror, Olivia saw the door of the nearest SUV swing open while it was still moving. A sturdy man in a suit jumped out, slipping across the wet ground as he caught up with the tractor. His expensive shoes were instantly caked in mud. Barely keeping his balance, he leapt onto the step and pulled himself into the cab. "What are you, deaf?" he roared, his breath hot against her face. "Get lost, I said." Olivia didn't even have time to open her mouth before he shoved her roughly aside. His hand twisted the wheel with brute force, and the tractor slid into a roadside ditch, sputtering to a stop. Thrown to the side, Olivia gripped the nearest handle to keep from falling out of the cabin. The man gave the fragile girl a smug, triumphant look and let out a satisfied chuckle. Then he jumped down quickly and returned to his car. The convoy sped away, spraying mud in all directions. Olivia shouted after them, "Go on then, hope your fancy rides get stuck, you idiots." Leaving deep tracks on the soggy roadside, the tractor climbed out of the ditch and moved on slowly. About 15 minutes later, Olivia noticed something glinting far ahead, where the road curved between the fields. She squinted, trying to see through the rain-streaked windshield, and a wide smile spread across her face. Then she burst out laughing as she realized what had happened. Right there, on the roughest stretch of the dirt road, the same shiny convoy was hopelessly stuck. The once imposing black SUVs now looked like helpless beetles floundering in thick, sticky mud. Their polished sides were splattered up to the windows, and the spinning wheels only sank deeper. People scurried around the vehicles, their expensive suits and shoes smeared with muck, faces flushed red. Sweat mixed with drizzle and dirt on their foreheads as they struggled in vain. On a small patch of grass, a plump man in an expensive suit stood fuming. He jabbed angrily at his golden smartphone, trying in vain to find a signal, while his bodyguards struggled to push a whining, wheel-spinning SUV out of the mud. Olivia drove closer and stopped her tractor, leaving the engine running. The man with the black phone noticed her. "Hey, tractor girl, what are you staring at? Get over here!" he shouted irritably. Olivia slid the small window open. "Maybe learn some manners first, fat man," she yelled back. The rich man turned crimson, his face twisting in fury. He waved sharply, and one of the guards trudged toward the tractor. "Get her out of there," he barked. The nearest guard, panting and slipping on the wet ground, reached the tractor. Ignoring Olivia's protests, he yanked her roughly from the cabin and tried to start the engine to move it himself. The motor sputtered loudly, coughed once, and died immediately. Olivia just smirked, watching the clumsy attempt to tame her old companion. The rich man, who had been watching with triumph, now flushed with rage.
He kicked a clump of grass, sending dirt flying, and nearly lost his shoe. Then he looked at the fragile girl darkly. There was a glint of desperation in his eyes. He understood they wouldn't get out of there without her help. "I'll pay you," he said, "as much as you want." Olivia gazed at him calmly, then at his guards, who had already given up pushing the stuck car. "Why should I help such rude people?" she replied. "You didn't even introduce yourself, and already you're shouting? Maybe start with some good manners first." Her words hit him like a slap in the face. The expression on the man's face shifted from rage to strained politeness, yet his eyes stayed sharp and resentful. He took a deep breath and forced out something resembling courtesy. "My apologies," he said, his tone a little softer now, even dipping his head slightly. "My name is John Robert Smith. I'm a very busy man, and I'm in a great hurry. I assure you I will compensate you for any inconvenience." Olivia studied him carefully. She could tell this was a cunning, adaptable man, one who changed tactics quickly when brute force failed. A faint smile crossed her lips. "Well then, I'll help you. You're in trouble, and it costs me nothing to lend a hand." She paused for a moment. The air between them grew tense. John and his guards stood waiting. "But in return," Olivia said calmly, "you must give me your word. You'll grant me one request when the time comes." John's face broke into a smug grin. A man used to buying and commanding his way through life, he didn't take her words seriously. "Any request you want, Miss Tractor Driver," he mockingly said, curling his lip. "So that I know you'll keep your word, I need to speak to someone who understands real promises and real deeds. I need to talk to my father." John was taken aback. His smug smile faltered. "All right, fine," he snapped irritably. "We have a deal. Just hurry up and get us out of here. Time is money." Olivia shook her head calmly. "Don't rush, Mr. Smith," she said evenly. "If you really want to understand what this is about, try it yourself. This isn't pushing buttons on your phone or ordering people around. It takes a bit more than that." She nodded toward the tractor's steering wheel. "Go on, Mr. Smith. Take the wheel. Try pulling your own cars out. I'll tell you what to do." John's face stretched in disbelief. His bodyguards exchanged nervous glances, sensing how ridiculous this was about to get. But he had no choice. His eyes darted from the stuck SUVs to his exhausted men. Grunting and turning red with effort, he climbed into the tractor and awkwardly settled behind the wheel. "So what do I do now?" he muttered, eyeing the levers and pedals with visible disgust. "Well, don't just sit there," Olivia said sharply, mischief dancing in her eyes. "Start it up, but gently." John hesitantly turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. He tried again and again. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His guards turned away, barely containing their laughter. At last, after a few painful attempts, the engine roared to life. "Come on, give it some gas," one of the guards shouted, forgetting his place. John slammed his foot down. The tractor jolted violently, rattled, and died again, this time with an ugly metallic clang. Olivia wiped a splash of mud from her cheek and gave him a mocking look. "Well, Mr. Smith, not so easy without your servants, huh? This isn't quite like barking orders over the phone. Watch and learn how real men work." She waited until John climbed out of his cab, then hopped lightly into his place. "Hey, hand me the tow cable," she called out to the guards. With one confident motion, Olivia started the engine again. Her hands moved swiftly and precisely across the levers. Slowly but surely, she rocked the tractor, feeling for solid ground beneath the wheels. The motor hummed steadily. The tractor began to crawl forward, tightening the tow line connected to the first SUV. The guards joined in, pushing and guiding as the heavy vehicle began to rise from the muck. The sound of spinning tires, squelching mud, and the growl of the engine blended into one deep roar. John, his face twisted in disbelief, watched as the country girl handled with ease what neither he nor his men could manage. One by one, the SUVs broke free from the mire, leaving deep scars across the soaked road. As the bodyguards brushed off mud and climbed back into their cars, Olivia turned off the tractor and looked at John. "Well, Mr. Smith, dirty work, isn't it?" she smirked. "Not quite like signing papers in an office." John trudged toward his armored vehicle. One of his bodyguards quickly opened the door for him. When he finally squeezed himself into the luxurious seat, Olivia leaned halfway out of her tractor and called out loudly so everyone could hear, "Mr. Smith!"
"You made me a promise, remember?" Olivia said. John, already halfway inside his car, froze. For a brief second, confusion flickered across his face. Then he forced a strained smile, trying to appear composed. Yes, of course I remember, Miss Tractor Driver," he blurted out hastily, darting a quick glance at his bodyguard standing by the door, ready to shut it behind him. Then, with a sharp turn towards the driver, his voice regained its arrogance. "Drive." The doors slammed, engines roared, and the convoy sped away. Olivia, pleased with herself, rumbled leisurely along the familiar country road toward home in her old tractor. Her thoughts were filled with the coming conversation with her father, and with how cleverly she had put that arrogant rich man in his place. But as she approached the family gates, Olivia froze. There they were, the same black SUVs belonging to John Robert Smith, parked right in front of their house. She killed the engine, jumped down from the cab, and hurried toward the house. As she stepped onto the porch, raised voices reached her ears, the sound of a fierce argument, neither side willing to back down. "How dare you! This is our land! Ours!" It was her father's voice, trembling with anger and outrage. In response came John's cold, authoritative tone. "It's mine now. Everything's legal, signed and sealed. Don't make this harder on yourself, old man." Olivia threw the door open. The room was tense, alive with fury. Her father stood at the center, his face red with rage, fists clenched. Across from him, puffing out his chest arrogantly, was John, waving a paper right in the old man's face. Behind him loomed his massive bodyguards, ready to pounce at the slightest signal. On either side of her father stood Olivia's brothers, sleeves already rolled up. Olivia stepped into the room, but no one seemed to notice her. The air was thick with hostility. "You stubborn old fool! Don't you get it?" John snarled, his face twisted with fury. "I need this land. In 2 months, construction of a luxury cottage community begins here, and I don't care if you people have nothing left to eat after that." "We're not leaving," her father's voice cracked, filled with despair yet firm with resolve. "Father, what's going on?" Olivia's voice rang out, cutting through the chaos like a bell. Everyone froze and turned toward her. "Go back, my daughter," her father cried suddenly. But Olivia raised her hand to stop him, her eyes fixed on John Robert Smith. "Mr. Smith," she said, politely but firmly, her tone sharp with purpose.
Her gaze swept over the guards who were now watching her with renewed attention. "You gave me your word, in front of witnesses, that you would grant me any request I asked. Isn't that right?" John's face drained of color, then flushed red again. He swallowed hard, his eyes darted nervously. The very words he had tossed out as a joke now echoed hauntingly in the small room. "Well, yes, I suppose I did," he muttered, clearly searching for a way out. At that moment, one of the bodyguards cleared his throat behind him. "Mr. Smith, sir, you did say that. We all heard it."
John clenched his teeth. His eyes darted toward his bodyguards, who silently nodded, confirming their comrade's words. He realized there was no way out. He was trapped by his own promise. "All right then, Miss Tractor Driver," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "What is it that you want?" Olivia stared straight at him. Her eyes gleamed with determination. "Give up our land," she said clearly. "Write a statement of refusal." John flinched as if struck across the face. He had known she would say that. He opened his mouth to object, but then his expression shifted. He turned his gaze to Olivia's father. "You know, old man, maybe it's not such a bad thing after all. You must be tired of running this whole farm, huh? The land's good, sure, but time passes." Her father, still recovering from the shock of his daughter's intervention, straightened his back. "Our farm is strong, fruitful. The soil's rich. It grows anything," he said simply, meeting John's gaze. "My children are hard workers. We'd expand if we could, but money's tight. We've been wanting to buy new equipment, add more pasture. Just haven't managed yet." A spark lit up in John's eyes. His face showed that he had caught the scent of opportunity. "Expand, you say?" he drawled, and the arrogance in his tone was replaced by sharp business instinct. "What if I help you with that? I'll finance the expansion. Your crops, your apples, your honey, all of that's in demand. I own a big restaurant chain. I need reliable suppliers." Her father scratched the back of his head. "That's an interesting offer," he admitted. "Our harvest is steady. We could deliver regularly." "Then it's settled," said John, quickly pulling out a notepad and pen from his inner pocket. He scribbled something down, tore out a sheet, and handed it to the farmer. "Here's your guarantee for now, a written note confirming that all claims on your land are withdrawn." He glanced at his watch. "My assistant will contact you tomorrow morning to discuss the details. Sound good?" "Sounds good," replied the farmer. Satisfied with this new arrangement, John headed toward the exit. His guards followed him out. A moment later, the sound of car doors slamming and engines roaring filled the air. The convoy drove away. Olivia's father stepped toward Olivia and silently wrapped his rough, calloused hands around her in a tight embrace. A single tear glistened in his eye. When he let her go, Olivia gently wiped his face with the back of her hand and whispered softly, "It's okay, Dad. It's over now." Though cunning as ever, John kept his word. Not long after that day, Olivia's family received solid funding to grow their farm. And John didn't lose out either. Their produce turned out to be in high demand as the craze for organic food swept through his restaurants. He had found himself a reliable supplier, and eventually his luxury cottage village was built elsewhere, far from the clever young tractor driver who had outsmarted him. Olivia and her family worked side by side, their farm thriving year after year. The story of how a village girl taught a rich businessman a lesson spread by word of mouth and became a local legend. And you, did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more.